everyone. My name is AJ Akpodiete, but you can call me AJ for short, and welcome to the PassionFruit Project, where we talk about living out your passions, bearing fruit, and glorifying God. I'm sure, as you're kind of hearing in the way that I said all that, that all came from my voice, and not the second voice of this podcast that's usually here, Kristen Case. I could try and do a Kristen impression, but it wouldn't sound quite as good as it's supposed to. So this time around, even if you're looking at the cover art, you can probably tell Kristen is not with us, but she'll be with us for the next episode, which I'm really excited for. However, who I do have with me, our guest for today, the photographer, artist, graphic designer, the one, the only, Miss LG Lauren Garrett in the building.
Hi.
Did you like that? Did I have you up enough, or was that not enough?
I did. No, I mean, tell me more about myself.
How great you are. Man. Well, Lauren, it is so exciting to have you on. And I think what's funny is you were going to be the first guest that was going to be on the show. But then you decided to go and have like the time of your life the last couple weeks traveling. But now you're here for our fourth episode of the podcast. And I'm really excited. For those of you that don't know, Lauren did the cover art for my last single, Billie Jean and whatnot. She's an amazing artist. I'm kind of watching her do incredible things with art for the last few years, actually, which I didn't know that you did art stuff when we first met. It wasn't until not a full year later, but around our sophomore year when I did. But you didn't start actually making that a thing you wanted to pursue until just a little bit later. So I guess kind of give the people a bird's eye view of who you are, what you do, and just like who is Lauren Garrett, and how did the creative transition happen where you started doing more of the photography and graphic design stuff?
Yeah, definitely. First, thanks so much for having me on here, AJ. Better late than never. And I'm stoked to be talking with you guys. And so a little bit about me from a bird's eye view, I guess, and kind of how I came to where I'm at today. I started college as an exercise science major. That's
the hardest
not
major in college.
It's up there. I thought that I was going to be a PA, so a physician's assistant, or a PT, a physical therapist. And so those are not creative jobs. But I was convinced that that's what I was going to do because I do have a lot of passions, and fitness and health is definitely one of them. So I was like, okay, this is a great thing for me. But I started down that path, and around the middle of my sophomore year, I just started to wonder, like, if my day adult beyond college was going to be something that I was fully satisfied with. So in an attempt to kind of explore other options outside of exercise science, I took an advertising art class, which was very graphic design heavy. And I absolutely fell in love with the concept of art and design, and kind of that intersection of like creating art that influences people to do something. And that's a little more like marketing. But using art to like influence actions, behaviors, to connect people to lifestyles, I just thought it was incredible. So first thing I did was I picked up a camera, and that was starting around sophomore year. Not too long actually after you and I first became friends, AJ. And I just started messing around. I'd never taken a photography class. I just always shot with our old family Nikon, like on auto. I wasn't doing anything fancy. But I started just messing around and like learning about photo composition and just kind of like working with models and other people. And so I had a couple friends who let me embarrass myself behind a camera and just to make them look cool. And it didn't go half bad. So I slowly started to get better. And so that photography skill with that newfound love for like design and graphic design on computers led me to change my major from exercise science to marketing communication halfway through college, and set me on a fast track to like a crash course in all things creative and graphic design and branding and marketing, starting my junior year. So yeah, that was a wild 2 years. I had a lot of catching up to do because most people in like marketing and the creative field kind of start there, it seemed like, at least at CalU. So it was a really steep learning curve, but I got to take a lot of really cool classes that kind of led me to hone in on my particular passion. I love telling stories about lifestyles a lot. I really, really love that. And so I love using art to tell stories for like lifestyle brands and organizations, just people who are doing something kind of like bigger than themselves. So that is what I hope to do in the future. I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but it's kind of what I'm doing now. And so, yeah, I'll leave that at that.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, and I think there was a little bit of digital distortion in there for a short section, but you said you were thinking about and I think what you said was what your day-to-day would look like in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's not like you suddenly hated exercise science, or you didn't suddenly not have any desire to be a PA or a PT. You acknowledged that you had multiple passions, multiple things that you wanted to do that you could have done, but you were like, well, you sat down and thought about vision, like, what do I want to see? Like, what do I see my future looking like? And you kind of liked the idea of a future in marketing and designing things than you did in working with athletes, which is still a valid passion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I love what you said right there. It's like words right out of my mouth. Like, it wasn't like one day I just hated studying exercise science. It was actually a tough decision for me to leave because I do love it. And I still have that passion for fitness and health and active lifestyle. And PAs and PTs and everyone else in the medical, like health profession, like that's super admirable. And I love what they do. But yeah, I definitely just looked at my day-to-day for the future and not only thought about what I wanted, but also just tried to picture like how God was going to use me and like what I was passionate about. And I honestly kind of came to this conclusion, like, okay, I like studying this, but I can't see myself being passionate in a career for 30 years in this field, which is like really big and existential. But it was important for me to think like that because I want what I do with my life to, at the end of the day, like honor God, whether it's like in the church or outside of the church. Like my day-to-day is going to be about that. So I figured like just knowing myself and like understanding like who God made me to be, like I wasn't going to be able to go into a career where I wasn't like completely sold out like in my day-to-day. So yeah, that's what led to the switch.
Yeah, for sure. And this was like around the same time that you started, like you were doing a lot of things sophomore year because we were both RAs. You started leading with the high school ministry at Calvary. You obviously, I think you were taking like cell biology or some kind of crazy, I don't know, like all those classes sound the same to me. It's like metamorphosis, metabolism. I'm like, oh no.
Basically.
And I remember like you would create things for our RA staff, like that we would use for different stuff. Like part of the job we had was creating like bulletin boards and creating flyers to go across the halls about events we were doing. And the stuff you created was always, it made all of us look bad. And so because it was just so good.
Not even. You're sweet.
And so like, we kind of all saw it coming. And I think as you asked us, I mean, maybe not, but maybe most of, your coworkers at the time, the RA staff, like, were pretty much like, yeah, Lauren, you should be doing artistic stuff. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it does. I think back to like what you and Giselle and even like Ben and Hannah were saying, and Andrew Castro for sure, because I talked a lot to Andrew just about advice and stuff, because he's a great knowledgeable dude. Andrew was our boss essentially while we were on that RA staff together. And he was like, yeah, Lauren, all of you were like, yeah, Lauren, I don't know. Like, if you're thinking of switching, like, it seems like you've got some untapped potential over here and you should really go explore it. And it was a good push. I needed that, because if I hadn't had it, I don't know if I would have had the courage to step out and do that. But yeah, I'm thankful that it went down the way it did.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, like with the idea, like there's like multiple of those passions being valid and whatnot. You actually legitimately did struggle with this, like you said, and you're thinking about it a lot, praying about it a lot. So I don't know, kind of like talk about how did the conversations with God kind of go about like, do I want to work, or like, what decisions do I want to make now to live out the life that you want for me? Like, how did those, like, what was the spiritual side of making that decision?
I think I see what you're getting at. So I'm going to try my best to answer. And if you need me to like stop and clarify, let me know. So I think a lot of what kind of like guided that prayer was knowing. First, I started from what I knew about who God made me to be. So I know God's made very clear in my life from like a young age, like, I don't know, high school, like it's been a while that I've understood that like God made me as a person who gets very passionate about like things that I love to do. I have many passions. And I understood that like in my career, day to day, like whether I was working in the church or whether I was working, I don't know, at Target, like I needed to be like, I could glorify him in that, whatever I was doing. But I needed to be passionate about it. Like that's what was going to allow me to like do what I was doing with excellence for his glory, to love people well for his glory, to be joyful in my tasks for his glory, that kind of thing. So looking at that, it was kind of, and that's kind of where like the spiritual conversations and the prayer started, was like, okay, God, like, yes, I'm passionate about fitness and health and wellness, but I'm also passionate about like telling stories with art and design. So like, I know a lot about this one. I know a lot about this fitness and like health career, but I don't know a lot about this. So like, just show me that, like open a door, make something clear there, show me opportunities, show me kind of what that could look like cross my paths with individuals who can speak wisdom to me on what those lives are like and what opportunities and what doors you can open with like each of those potential. Honestly, to get like a little vulnerable, that I had to pray a lot on was significance. I'm a person who really, really values significance. I like to feel significant, if that makes sense, in what I do. For better or for worse, it's just kind of like a big motivating factor for me. So the being in the medical field and like helping heal people, like that's a significant job. It has a lot of significance. So I honestly like this it was probably selfish. So let's just say the selfish part of me like really struggled to let go of this career where I knew people were going to be like, oh, like you're a doctor essentially, like, or you're a type of doctor, like you're a physical therapist, you're a physician's assistant, like that's awesome. Like there's recognition and prestige and significance that comes with that. Whereas like being a marketer or like graphic designer, which is, what I ended up doing. Like, if anything, like when I say graphic designer, people like don't really know what that is. So they're like, oh, cool. Yeah. You like make pretty stuff. And I'm like, or if I come across with like marketing first, then like the only like not significance I get, if ever, will be like, oh, so like you're in it for the big bucks. I'm like, no, marketing is like low key lucrative. I'm not on the lucrative side. The lucrative side is data analytics. I'm on the artsy fartsy side. But anyway, it's not like I did it for the money. And that's why I'm here talking about God's passions. But yeah, so that's, long story short, that's kind of how like the prayers and those conversations with God and conversations with like my brothers and sisters in Christ, like people who I considered mentors, like that's how those kind of went.
Yeah, for sure. It was a self-awareness conversation, And I think it's cool that you didn't like 100% just jump the boat and switch, but you did what one of my old pastors would refer to as how was he called? He calls them like micro changes. That's like you don't change everything, but you change like do one small thing that could change things, and be open to whatever happens. And for you, that was taking advertising art. Yeah,
I like that. That's good. I'm gonna use that to your credit, of course.
Thank you. Make sure you give me a copyright, and say like trademarked by AJ.
Oh my gosh.
Man. So you said that you started actually like you picked up you used your family's camera and started taking pictures of friends around like this was what was that, like February-ish, like in the middle of the second semester?
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be about it. I could pull up my phone real quick if you're interested in like for sure.
You're good.
That sounds about right.
But so then you started actually like putting some like dope photos out there and like actually, doing like, I don't know, like talk about inviting people into that process and how, because it's one thing to say like, oh, I'm a photographer. And then someone's like, oh, okay, like, where can I see your work? And then you like started putting out things that you had done out there and whatnot. And it was crazy because we were all looking and we were like, oh, she's like, she got the sauce,
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
So I don't know, like, was it like, were you nervous at all? Like doing grad photos or like engagement photos and things of that nature?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is funny because to be honest with you, I still really struggle with like calling myself a photographer. Like I really struggle doing it because, and it's probably because I know so many amazing photographers who are like far more talented than I am, who are like my age, well, our age, doing this thing like professionally, and like they either studied photography or they've just been doing this for a couple more years and they're like, that is their thing, and like I've been slow to learn. I've taken it really casually. And I admittedly am like not very technically advanced at this point. I think I have a good eye, which has worked really well to my benefit, but like operating a camera in its fullness still, like I definitely have a lot to learn, and I'm continuing to learn because I've discovered that I love it. But even getting to the point where I was starting out on that was super interesting. I mean, at the very, very beginning, like the first couple photo shoots you ever saw me post on my Instagram, that was previously called Low Tropics Photo. Low, I'm Lauren. That's me. And then Tropics because I like tropical things. So that was the branding behind that. Those first couple photo shoots were literally just with friends who I was like, hey, can I take some photos of you? Like just for fun. And they're like close personal friends. And they were like, yeah, sure. Why not? And so it was super casual. And we just went to places near Kalu, like within 5 minutes. Like I think my first photo shoot that I posted on Low Tropics was up at the Cross or like around there. And then another one was kind of over more towards Wildwood. And yeah, it was I wasn't too nervous about it because these were people that I knew super well. And it was under the premise of just like, hey, I'm just learning, like, let me mess around with my camera. But they turned out good. And it was from those first 2 photo shoots actually, where I took 2 people who like weren't models, like didn't even necessarily like want to take pictures for me. I would just like kind of bribe them with like, hey, come on, we're friends and you'll have pretty photos for your Instagram, like that kind of thing. And we ended up getting some cool shots. And what really like sparked the excitement and the passion for me there with photography was capturing sides of these people that even surprised them when they saw the photos. And that continues to be like my favorite aspect of photography is like taking, because I haven't worked yet with anyone. I lied. I've only had one client ever in the last 3 years who I didn't personally know. And that's like part of me not being like a photographer full time, and also part me like not pushing the whole like photography business thing because I'm still learning. So most of these people that I've worked with are like ordinary people, not models, like just my friends who like, you know, beyond knowing how to like smile for a picture, like don't know how to look like a Vogue cover, you know?
Vogue challenge.
Yeah, I mean, the Vogue challenge changed things, but you know what I mean? And so it was cool, like going out with my friends and like having them like be like, I don't know, like I hope those turned out good. And then pulling up the photos later, doing a little bit of editing, like just like lighting and stuff, not like Photoshop or anything, but like just changing some lighting and some colors and like setting the mood. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I look freaking cool. And me being like, yeah, you do. Like you look like a model, like straight out of a magazine. And that was fun, seeing people like get surprised at themselves because of how I was able to like picture them. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And there's like a natural collaborative nature to it. Cause like if you're taking photos of other people, then like let's say you post that person's then gonna like share that to their Instagram story and be like, yeah, this was taken by Lauren and whatnot. Yeah. And then they go and tell other people, and then they're like hit you up and be like, hey Lauren, I didn't know that you so you're doing photos out here? That's a thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy. And because, you know, like I think like this is a weird thought, but do you ever wonder if Instagram existed 20 years ago or something, like back when people, you remember the cameras that used to take a picture and then go like, and you'd have to like on vacation, the disposable cameras. Like I wonder, would that have encouraged more people to do more photography stuff? Because I think for a while, like photography kind of seemed like a thing that like moms do, you know, like for their kids.
Dude, the camera that I was using is my mom's camera. Like it's our like family Nikon, but it was for my mom.
So like, man, it's crazy to think that like now people can have careers being photographers, and you don't have to work for Vogue or some big, huge company to do it. And then that also plays into this idea of, you know, we talked a little bit with Faith last episode. I don't know if we mentioned these words specifically while we were recording, but this idea of like transferable skills, and even the idea of like talent stacking, because you don't just do photography, you also paint, and kind of like from those things came like this idea of, okay, well, what you can do in Illustrator, InDesign, Photoshop. Wait, do you use InDesign? You don't use InDesign. That's more for press stuff, right? You use Illustrator.
I do use InDesign a little bit actually, but yeah, primarily Photoshop and Illustrator.
Yeah, and so like you've built up this ability to do lots of different things with your skills. So kind of like, I don't know, like what, in terms of the world of, I don't know, like what would you call yourself? Like what's the title of, because you can't, like, because what you do is multimedia. That's like what we call it. Yeah. Or what do you kind of call your, like, your title, I guess, you know? It's a weird thing to say.
So in the last couple months, actually, as we've graduated college and, you know, like needing to define ourselves for our careers so that employers kind of like know what they're looking at when they get our resumes, right, has actually forced me to answer that question. So I've kind of defined myself as a creative. It's a newer title in like the graphic art, digital art industry. But it's kind of like the label for someone who's like a jack of all trades in terms of digital art. So like my resume says graphic designer and creative. So people know that I have graphic design skills, but when they go, like, I just finished a portfolio website, like literally a couple days ago. So I do like a tad bit of web design, but like literally like the smallest bit. And so that's like the web design part of my portfolio is the fact that I have a portfolio website. But on there, I have photography under the categories of product, portrait, and landscape. I have marketing assets under the categories of lookbooks, product suites, media kits, and catalogs. I have social media content for Instagram, Pinterest, infographics, and stuff like that. Then I have graphic art, which is a bunch of like graphic art cartoons and graphic art like prints that I've made in Adobe Illustrator. And then I have logos, which is something I've like recently started doing. I've started doing some freelance work in the way of like recreating logos, or also like designing original logos for companies who don't have one. So graphic designer and creative. That was a really long answer to a really short question, but yeah.
No, that makes that's a good way of putting it, and I think, for some people, they hear the word creative or they hear the word content and they get kind of like, like they don't really like those words, but it's the best way to kind of describe, I guess, what's like this shift in ability that's come with social media. And I'm glad that you touched on, this whole like portfolio website kind of thing, because of course this is the PassionFruit Project. It's about passion, but it's also about, bearing fruit and actually having things that you put out there to display like, this is what I have created, and how you can use both of those things to glorify God. But fruit also has to do with like, you got to find a way to make money and survive. So I don't know, how is the money side of that word? Because obviously, at this point, you haven't really been charging people. I mean, as far as I know, at least not for graphic design stuff, but like, how has money played a factor in being a creative, applying for jobs, but also like freelance stuff? And I guess, have you charged anyone for stuff that you've done? Because I know you wouldn't let me pay you for a couple of things, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. The money thing is definitely something I have to grow confidence in. So I think one way I'm growing as an individual, even like currently, I was going to try and put that in the past tense, like recently, but it truly is like even like through this moment, is understanding that like I have contributions for the world. My contributions happen to be artistic in most senses, and those are like in exchange for my contributions, like I should receive payment. Like that's how our society thrives, right? Like we all have different contributions. Doctors, their contributions are medical. Your contributions are artistic as well, right? You're a producer and you do things with music and sound and podcasts and stuff like that. And so that's been something that I've been like, this is a weird way to put it, but like coming to terms with, as if it was a bad thing. But like, it's uncomfortable for me because I think I just want to like give and give freely. And that's not a bad thing. And I think that there are plenty of times to do that. Like I absolutely like have zero regrets about doing Billie Jean. in the way that I did. Like, I don't, like, you're a friend, and I love that I was able to like gift that to you. And I love giving gifts to people in the form of art. But I am learning like when I do want to charge. And so I've started doing that. Yeah. The first time I charged for photography was 2018. And I charged next to nothing. Take my word for it. Actually, it was 2019, not 2018. I was just last year. And I literally charged next to nothing because I was so uncomfortable with the idea that someone was going to pay me to take photos of them because it's something I've done so casually for so long. And people were like, Lauren, come on.
Yeah.
So I was
think
okay,
like, I don't know. I would personally would say the stuff that you create, I think it's worth its weight in salt. Or not salt, like money.
Yeah,
but,
no, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I started charging next to nothing for photos last year, and that was like the round of senior photos that I did. But that was a step for me as a person, I think, and as an adult, like learning that like, okay, it's okay to do this. And then the next kind of step in that direction was when I was fundraising for my Hume, Hawaii trip. For AJ, you know, but for context for everyone listening in, I'm a part of this awesome ministry called Hume Hawaii. And every year I go with the organization Hume Christian Camps out to Oahu for a week. And we put on church camp in all of its glory. We got recreation, chapel, games, free time, a camp experience for kids and churches out on the island. And we fundraise for it to keep costs low because running camp is expensive. And if you go to Hume on the mainland, you'll pay a ton, like a lot. Take my word for it. Too much. It's expensive. And out in Hawaii, just a lot of the locals there couldn't afford that at that same price because things are different over there. The economy is different over there. So we fundraise to keep costs low, basically next to nothing for kids to be able to come to church camp. And so I had to fundraise for my trip this last year. It happened actually right as COVID hit. That's a separate story. But regardless, Hume Hawaii was in March. So about November of 2019, I started fundraising for this trip that was supposed to happen in March 2020. And I did that by creating graphic prints based on photographs for donations. So like, for example, like AJ, I didn't make a graphic print for him for this fundraiser, but how it would work would be like if AJ wanted to donate to my Hume Hawaii trip, he'd give me his favorite photo of him and I would turn it into a graphic, like basically a cartoon of him. And then he'd donate to my Hume Hawaii trip. And I didn't set a price point on that because again, me and money, I was like, I don't want to tell you how much my art is worth. But yeah, I did that. And then that was a step in the right direction. And then this year for senior photos, I increased my prices and had a set price for that.
Yes.
But I'm still far cheaper than any other like professional photographer you find. And that definitely speaks to my lack of confidence and my lack of knowledge because I'm still learning. So we'll see. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, and like there's something to be said about like, how weird would it be like if teachers were like, I don't know, you know what? I love history. I'm just gonna be a history teacher for free. Just gonna teach history for 5 hours a day, you know, and not get paid.
Yeah.
Like, that would be weird. Like we want to pay our teachers more money.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with like, you know, like doctors, you know, police officers, no matter how controversial that might be, you know, like people who provide value, like money is the exchange of value, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So it's cool that you're going through that process of figuring out how to make that happen.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard.
Yeah, so you've been doing freelance work for a while, but right now you're looking to work at an agency as your job, correct?
Yeah, actually, more than working for a marketing agency, I'm hoping to get in with like a lifestyle company. I currently work part-time for a lifestyle company and I flip and love it. So I'm hoping, but they just can't afford me to bring me on full time because they're so small.
Mm.
So I'm currently looking for full time in a lifestyle company, but it's COVID. We're recent college grads. So working for a marketing agency could totally end up being what I do for a while.
Yeah, and it's okay to like you're gonna be doing a little bit of both for a while, doing the freelancing as well as having like a dedicated paycheck and whatnot.
Yeah.
But is your plan to eventually go like full time with on your own business, create it, all that?
For personal reasons that would take a really long time to explain, so I won't. I'm actually not super interested at this point in time in owning my own business. So I probably will never go completely independent. I can't see myself really like owning my own like creative studio. Because that's what people who are like in my field, like with my skill set, that's what they do is they open their own creative studios and work freelance. I'm definitely interested in getting in with a lifestyle brand or an organization that I love that kind of like share some passions of mine and helping them tell their stories and engage their customers or like create communities around their organizations and businesses with my art. Like that's what I'm hoping to do, but we shall see.
Right. So something more along the lines of like a Ragamuffin or a 507 or even like Rush Life, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Like here's a good example. The company I currently work for is called Ethics Supply Co. And they're a fancy candle company. But we share a lot of passions and it makes my job so fun, like working for them. Their brand is just like their name, Ethics Supply Co. Their candles are all like safe, like health-wise, because there's a lot of toxic chemicals, like shockingly toxic chemicals and like normal, like everyday candles. Healthy candles are becoming more and more popular, actually, which is cool. But yeah, they're healthy to burn, they're safe to burn. Packaging is sustainable. We're a small woman-owned business. We're hand poured in the USA, so like economically and environmentally sustainable. And they love the outdoors. So my boss is like obsessed with the outdoors. All of our fancy candles are based on outdoor places. And I also happen to be passionate about outdoor places. And so many of our candles are tied to like charitable organizations that go to support national parks and things like that. And so like that's kind of like what I mean about like getting in with a brand that's doing something bigger than themselves. And has passions that align with mine because it helps make the job more fun and keeps the creative juices flowing better.
Oh man, this is so good. This is so good. Man, I wish we could sit here and talk just forever about this.
Me too. Man.
So Lauren, you know, there's someone out there who's like they're interested in something in the creative fields along the lines of graphic design, art, photography, social media, marketing, all that stuff. It looks really big. It looks kind of daunting. They're not sure. And it's not their only passion. They're also passionate about other things, but they feel a bit of a calling towards being a creative, which is the word that you kind of used to describe yourselves. But they're not sure if they can actually make it work. They're not sure if they're good enough. They're not sure if they'll be able to make money. They're not sure if they can live their passions and bear fruit and glorify God. What would you say to that person listening right now?
I mean, first, I was in those shoes. Exactly. Like literally, that's exactly where I stood, what you just described, word for word. I would say first get in prayer. Ask God to open doors for you. Ask him to align conversations with people who can speak to kind of the place that you're in, like the in-between place. Because if you ask, he will honor that. And all of a sudden you'll be having crazy conversations with people that'll just really, really clarify things. And that's just great. Clarity is so important for purpose and just helps give your heart peace, especially when you're trying to do something like honor God with, with your career and your passions. As far as actually like getting into the creative field, it is so daunting. I mean, when you see like for me, it was seeing things like Patagonia ads that just like shifted my soul, like the visuals in like Patagonia ads. I'm sorry, I'm such a graphic design nerd. Those strong visuals and like from other lifestyle companies who just like do it right, like their marketing is like, ooh, it's there. And like the way that their art would like move me not only towards their brand, but like towards their lifestyle and the community that they like align themselves with. And then thinking like, I want to do that too. But that like shifting a person's soul with your art. Like, difficult, like that's just, it's so daunting, to see that like to make a billboard, like to drive by a billboard that you love and be like, I want to do that, but how? I don't even know how to use like Photoshop. Like what is that? Do I pay for it? Like I've been to square one where I like literally didn't know what I was doing. Like just humble yourself a little bit and be willing to talk to people who are 10 steps ahead of you. Like I shamelessly slid into the DMs of people who I knew who were in marketing and graphic design, friends who were kind of like already down that journey, who I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to like step on their toes. Like, what if they think I'm copying them? I just like got humble and was like, hey, I love what you're doing. Like, how do I do that? What steps did you take? And then I even like slid into the DMs of a couple of my favorite creators, like influencers on
Sadie
Instagram.
Robertson, question mark?
No. But like there's this girl named Lauren Beeston who's like a creative and she's also an Instagram influencer and she has like over 100,000 followers. I DM'd her like a year and a half ago and she straight up answered. I was like, hey, like I'm super interested in doing kind of like along the lines of what you're doing. Like, where would you recommend I start? And she actually answered me and like gave me some tips. And then I got on YouTube a ton. YouTube can teach you how to do anything. To this day, in my job or like just in my personal work, like if I'm trying to like create a graphic print for someone and I want to create an effect and I don't know how to do it, like instead of freaking out and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb, I never got a formal education in this, I go to YouTube and it fixes my problems.
There you
so
go. YouTube,
yeah.
the fixer of all problems.
YouTube and Jesus, the fixer of all problems.
Yes, man.
But yeah, so that's what I'd say. I think I answered that question. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. There was one specific thing you said in there that kind of made me think of like I don't know the citing for this proverb, but it says men plan out their lives, but God directs their steps. It's so true. Like it's important to just like when we have these huge decisions to like pray to God. And also like understand like you might make a plan and it might change. Like I remember being like 13 thinking I was gonna be the greatest rapper alive, and I've just since then realized like I am a little bit better at producing than I am at rapping. I'm a little bit better at creating social media content than I am at rapping, and kind of like letting God kind of use those skills and like whatnot, like creating, like doing more video editing and whatnot. And I don't even know exactly what that means for my future, but I do know what it means. Like I have my plans and I make them and I try my best to work hard every day at them, but also trusting that God's going to direct my steps.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Lauren, this is all so good.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I said this is all so good. But Sorry, I think you were about to say something though.
I could go off. Yeah, just something that you said that really resonated with me. You were talking about like what if my plans change or something like that. That's something that as a person, like, I know, I just love that you acknowledge that like you can kind of like set your plan and then your plans can change, or like ask God to like set your course and feel like he set it and then like the course changes, right? That was something that I struggled with for a long time because I feel like, and honestly, actually, I still do struggle with that. Because being someone who is so passionate about multiple very different things, which is why marketing is so perfect for me, by the way, and creative things, because it allows you to be passionate about lots of different things. But being someone who's just kind of wired like that, like I get excited about like the really cool pattern on my pillows, and I also get excited about Big Sur, and I also get excited about like talking to people, you know, and thinking that like, okay, like 1 month I'm going to be doing ministry for the rest of my life, and then the next month I'm going to go to work at a lifestyle company, and then the next month like maybe I'm like gonna be a hippie and rent a van and go create content in the Swiss Alps. I don't know. Like, and I got to a place where I started to get insecure about like sharing those passions with people because I felt like I was switching my plan so often. And it wasn't quite as often as like those exaggerated examples I just gave, but like,
Yeah.
I still don't know. Like at the moment, like, I mean, we're in a very uncertain time with COVID, and I don't need to talk about that because we all know it's wild out there. Oh, yeah. But like at the moment, I'm picturing my life as this thing where I'm probably going to go to work for a company or an organization here in most likely California, work 9 to 5, 5-ish days a week. Right. But like, I still have this huge heart and this huge passion for international ministry and missions. We could have an entire separate conversation about that. But I mean, there's graphic design needs for ministry. There's graphic design needs for missions and international missions, but there's also needs completely unrelated to that just like people wise and like personal ministry wise, I'm super passionate about. So who knows, like maybe I'll end up that way. And I used to be scared to like for a while, maybe like a year or two ago, I actually like actively tried to not talk to people about these passions that God had set on my heart. Because I'm not kidding, because I was so insecure about what people would think when they found out, 3 months later that I had like changed direction. But God will do what he'll do. And I mean, ultimately, like he's guiding my life. And so I'm not this like mindless robot, right? Like I have my own like passions and desires, but like at the end of the day, like I want God steering my ship. And so he's going to do that. And I might think I'm headed in one direction and get super stoked and tell the world about it when God's like, all right, and now we're going this way. And then the whole world's going to be like, but that's how he works and it's for his glory. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, and you never know what's going to happen. Like,
no.
you could go out on a missions trip for, let's say, like just a summer, and like get some vacation time from, okay, maybe that's a little bit long, but like get some vacation time, go on a missions trip in Spain, and you might like meet someone on that trip who's, like, I don't know, fall in love, or maybe I don't really like the terminology fall in love, but like, and you might suddenly realize like, oh man, this guy from Spain I love so much, and he, is like owns a Christian, like turning Bible stories into pieces of artwork thing, and you might go like, you might get married and create this incredible brand out in Spain with, this. And so like, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, I really wish we could stay here forever, but it's time for the lightning round. Lauren, are you ready?
Lightning round. Yeah.
So this is the way that this works. I have some questions pulled up on my computer and my cell phone. I'm going to set a timer, and your goal is to answer all the questions that I ask you as fast as possible and set the record. So currently,
well, with how much I love to talk. Good luck.
All right. So the fastest person to do it was Noelle. She got 32.14 seconds.
All right.
And then second place was Faith with 41.64 seconds.
Okay.
All right. These are pretty deep. I think are you sure you don't need to like mentally center yourself first, or?
Centering.
I'm just kidding.
And perfect.
All right. On your marks, get set. What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, Rocky Road.
What's your favorite movie?
Coconut. Oh my gosh, what's my favorite movie? Oh, Pride and Prejudice.
Favorite fast food? What's your spirit animal?
A sea otter.
Ever broken a bone?
Yes, my cheekbone.
Any plans for world domination?
No, none.
Would you rather have a horse-sized dog or a dog-sized horse?
Horse-sized dog.
All right. Lauren, you beat Faith's time by 1 second, but so you got 40.61 seconds. So you currently have second place.
Oh, darn it. Okay.
Yeah, you still did good. I think
Thank you.
it was the ice cream one killed you, didn't it?
It was the ice cream one. Why is that so hard? I love coconut. I love coconut ice cream.
Oh man. Wait, there's a Pride and Prejudice movie? I'm gonna sound so dumb saying that now. The comments are gonna crucify me.
I just rewatched it for the 300th time last night. They recently put it back on Netflix.
Oh, okay. Am I missing out by have not watched this?
Please go watch it. Please go watch it. I might even watch it again tonight. I mean, I seriously can't tell you how many times I've actually watched that movie. I'm obsessed with it. I get something new from it each time. That's why I love it so much. It's quite good.
Hey. All right. Well, Lauren Garrett, I don't know if I want to say Low Tropics Photo because that might not exactly be what it is. You're currently in the process of revamping your creative brand. But for now, if people want to connect with you, that's LGarrett _ 2 R's 2 T's _ at the end on Instagram. And I think that's like your main platform, Instagram, because photography.
Definitely. Yeah.
All right, cool. Any final words for the people or things that you want to plug, things that are coming up for you?
Just stay tuned for my new creative Instagram launch, I suppose. New brand name is LE Creative. LE is for Lauren Elaine, and that's me. So previously I've been featuring like mainly photography, but my portfolio is much more diverse than that. So this new Instagram is going to showcase a lot more graphic art, still some photography, maybe some marketing things and some logo things along with that. Just kind of like a portfolio on Instagram, just kind of like showing what I'm up to with lots of aesthetics. And then, yeah, that would be my only plug. But other than that, just thanks so much for having me, AJ.
What in the world? We just got an exclusive. This is exciting. You heard it here first, folks. Oh, man. That's Lauren Garrett. Follow her on Instagram at LGarrett _ 2 R's 2 T's. She's amazing. My own personal favorite graphic designer and whatnot.
Aw, thank you.
Thank you for being on the show, Lauren, and thank you, everyone, for listening. My name is AJ Akpodiete, but you can call me AJ for short. And thank you for listening to the PassionFruit Project, where we talk about living out your passions, bearing fruit, and glorifying God.